Hello and welcome back to Learn the Bible in a Year for May 9th, 2026. Today is Lost Sock Memorial Day. Now, if you were with us yesterday, you would know that yesterday was No Socks Day, and now, a day after No Socks Day, we're really sad because we've lost our socks. I find this to be painfully ironic. And today we're going to be covering Abimelech's bloody grab for power, Jesus feeding the crowd and walking on the sea, that's pretty cool, and David's fierce prayer against corrupt rulers. So let's jump right into it. So jumping into Judges, Gideon has died, and instead of Israel moving towards stability, the story immediately shows how quickly deliverance can rot and turn into ambition where there is no faithful center holding the nation together. Judges 9 is about Abimelech, one of Gideon's sons. His name means something like, "My father is king," which is awkward because Gideon had refused to make himself the king, but he named his son, "My father is king," so, put a pin in that. So Abimelech goes to Shechem, where his mother family lives, and he makes a political pitch based on bloodline and convenience. Now, Gideon had 70 sons, and Abimelech's point here is, hey, there's 70 of us. Instead of having all 70 of us try to rule, let's have one of us rule. And oh, by the way, let's make that person me, Abimelech. The city buys in and finances him to form a pagan temple treasury, and he hires violent men to help him eliminate his brothers. And after this evil and bloody conquest, only Jotham, his brother, survives. Now, a question you might have here is why is this story even in Judges if Abimelech is not really a judge? Well, that's actually kind of the whole point. The book is showing Israel's collapse from several angles. Sometimes the crisis comes from foreign oppression. Here, it comes from internal ambition, tribal loyalty, religious compromise, and the willingness to trade character for someone who promises control. The second half of the chapter shows how Jotham's warning pays out. Shechem turns against Abimelech, Abimelech turns against Shechem. The alliance built on bloodshed becomes a factory that produces more and more bloodshed. By the end, Abimelech dies in a humiliating scene when a woman drops a millstone from a tower. This is a pretty humiliating way to die, but it's totally on brand for a man who was obsessed with his own image. All right, now let's jump into the New Testament. We're in John chapter 6, verses 1 through 24 today. We move into John 6 with a settling shift to the Sea of Galilee near Passover. That timing matters because Passover already has Exodus echoes, deliverance from the wilderness, bread, and God providing for his people when there is no obvious supply chain. And a huge crowd follows Jesus because they've seen his signs. Jesus sees the need for food before anyone has a plan, and he draws Philip into the question. Philip does the math, which is fair. The numbers don't work. Andrew finds a boy with a small lunch, but even that observation comes with a very understandable, "this is adorable, but this is useless" energy. Jesus has the crowd sit down, and he gives thanks, and he distributes enough food for everyone, coming from the loaves and the fish. John emphasizes abundance by telling us that the fragments that were gathered afterwards filled up many baskets. This sign is revealing him as the giver of life and the one who supplies more than the wilderness generation could manufacture for themselves. The crowd responds by identifying him with the expected prophet and wanting to make him king by force. This might sound like a good plan until you realize that they want to draft Jesus into their own national and political expectations. They see power, bread, and potential liberation from Rome. They're not wrong to notice kingship language around Jesus, but they are misunderstanding the kind of king he is and the kind of kingdom he brings. So Jesus withdraws. Then the disciples cross the Sea of Galilee, at night, and the wind rises up, and Jesus comes to them on the water. In the Old Testament, the sea often represented chaos, danger, and forces beyond human control. John places Jesus calmly moving across what terrifies everyone else. This is not a magic trick, it is a revolution of authority. Now, by morning, the crowd is still searching for Jesus. They know something unusual has happened with the boats, and they track Jesus to Capernaum. The scene sets up with a long bread of life conversation that follows. John is letting the tension build. The crowd wants more bread. The disciples are still learning who is in the boat with them. And Jesus is about to explain that the sign was never meant to stop at full stomachs. There's more coming, but we're going to have to go over that tomorrow. And finally, we read Psalms 58, verses 1 through 11, and it goes like this. For the director of music to the tune of Do Not Destroy, of David, a miktam, do you rulers indeed speak justly? Do you judge people with equity? No, in your hearts you devise injustice, and your hands mete out violence on the earth. Even from birth the wicked go astray, but the womb they are wayward, spreading lies. Their venom is like the venom of a snake, like that of a cobra that has stopped its ears, that will not heed the tune of a charmer, however skillful the enchanter may be. Break the teeth of their mouths, O God. Lord, tear out the fangs of those lions. Let them vanish like water that flows away. When they draw the bow, let their arrows fall short. May they be like a slug that melts away when it moves along, like a stubborn child that never sees the sun. Before your pots can feel the heat of the thorns, whether they be green or dry, the wicked will be swept away. The righteous will be glad when they are avenged, when they dip their feet in the blood of the wicked. Then the people will say, surely the righteous still are rewarded. Surely there is a God who judges the earth. Alrighty. What was your main takeaway from today's reading? My main takeaway was Jesus who walked on the water. This has huge symbolic implications, right? I mean, throughout the history of Israel, they've seen some very dramatic things. And somebody like Jesus to have authority over the natural world, that's a big deal. That actually is sort of, I guess you could say, a spit in the face of all of the other pagan gods that are in the, surrounding countries. In these pagan countries, typically there was something like the god of the harvest, or the god of the sun, or the god of the water, or the god of the fill in the blank, all different gods, right? Now, of course, we know these to be pagan gods. They're not truly gods, right? Because there's only one, the one true God, Yahweh. But what Jesus is doing here is he's showcasing that all of these other pagan things, he is Lord over all of it. He has authority on heaven and on earth. So if he wants to walk on the water, well, he's going to do so because he invented water. He was there in the beginning and he will be here in the end. So that was my main takeaway from today's reading. What was your main takeaway? I'd be curious to know. Put that down in a comment section wherever it is that you are listening to this episode. And that is it for today. And I will see all of you cool cats again here tomorrow.